Hello, I'm Mary Petersen, and I am a volunteer with the Santa Clarita Valley chapter of the American Cancer Society. And in celebration of National Cancer Survivors Month, our local ACS chapter is honoring our cancer survivors in our community. And today we welcome Colleen Shaffer.
Thank you.
Who is celebrating her 20th year living with metastatic breast cancer. Colleen has a long history of volunteering with cancer patients, first with the American Cancer Society, and later founding the nonprofit Circle of Hope in 2004 to assist cancer patients with financial and emotional needs. Colleen, we're delighted that you are here with us today to share some of your story.
Well, thank you.
When you were first diagnosed, you and your husband were living in Kuwait. He was working. And you had flown home for a biopsy and discovered it was cancer. No?
I was in Paris. We had lived in Kuwait. Was in Paris. I had just lost a British girlfriend to breast cancer who had not checked herself. Felt a lump. I was less than 8 cup people, so hey, I got bigger, but this one wasn't going away. I says, I gotta go home. Came home. Okay, didn't think it was a problem, but we did an ultrasound, did everything, and it says, if it was you, and I had to go back over to the Middle East after Paris, I would have it removed. I says, fine. Trusted my gynecologist. Had a lipectomy in a doctor's office. I was an art student. I knew nothing about cancer. I was called in 2 days before I was supposed to get stitches out, and that's when I was told I had breast cancer, and found out later that, and this was a surgeon, I got a real education real quick.
So how did you deal with the fear that sets in after a cancer diagnosis? What helped you to get through those first months?
I think the hardest thing, at least for me, was calling my loved ones and telling them that I had breast cancer and they were living in Europe and on the East Coast. May not remember is a year before I had come home to be hospice caregiver for my father-in-law who died of lung cancer. So when I called my husband, 9 hours difference, I says, honey, I've got breast cancer. So it brought back all the memories of his loss of his father. And the first word I heard was, shit. I'm late for a video conference. I have to go. I have to call you back. From that day on, I swore that I would end any conversation with a positive note. I don't care if I cried, whatever, a joke or whatever, because you didn't have the technology back then to visually see somebody. Mm-hmm. So they could hear it in my tone. So I would put a smile on because then it reflects in the voice. Mm-hmm. There's nothing they can do. They feel helpless.
Yeah.
So I guess breast cancer, you might say, taught me to look at the glass half full versus half empty. Mm. About this time, my neighbor was dying of lung cancer. He was the only one who called me Baldy. He still had hair. God rest his soul. But I got involved in the Avon Walk. And because I was by myself, my family was scattered, I went on different training walks and I would ask them, why are you walking? Why are you doing this? I saw inspiration, and I definitely saw fear. And I saw determination. Mm. And I would ask, and went all over Southern California. First of all, I thought a mile was long. Tried walking for 60 miles. So I had to have a lot of training. But about that time, because I was going through radiation, I knew I was going to sunburn, so I made myself a sun hat. Well, it turned out to be a hat decorating class. So I looked like Uncle Fester's niece. I lost my eyebrows, my hair, both breasts. You couldn't tell what sex I was. So why not wear my boobs on top of my hat? And I was known as the boob hat lady. I was also a media spokesperson. And what I really found from my experience with my husband and my son is humor. Because I would ask, have you had your mammogram? Are you aware of breast cancer? And you see older people walking away, young women afraid to talk to you, but they would look at the boob hat. You know, the guys would look at me and go up and down. Oh, I'm fine. The girls, I knew exactly how, they're either for you or I don't want to deal with you. So that image gave me the opportunity, you know, to say, hey, if you love your spouse, if you love your sister, encourage her to have a mammogram, you know. And let's face it, the best place to go for information is American Cancer Society. There is no ifs, ands, about it. So I'd give the information out and whatever. Yeah. This was for Susan G. Komen, but again, it's all about bringing awareness to the community. 23 years ago, when I first got breast cancer, people didn't know what a pink ribbon was. You know, I asked for pink ribbon items from young moms, and I got pink curling ribbon. So, you know, we have come a long way, Mary.
We have.
You know.
Well, so just 3 years after your first diagnosis and your double mastectomy, your cancer returned and had metastasized to your liver and bones.
My spine.
Your spine. And that's when the Angel of Hope was born. You created her to show that a cancer diagnosis is not a death sentence. And as you said, that's the first time I met you was wearing that. What transformed for you from your first diagnosis to your metastatic diagnosis?
I remember the oncologist, my girlfriend, my husband was out of town. And he says, you're metastatic. And I looked at him, stage 4, yes. And my girlfriend, what does that mean? I said, I'll tell you later. I call myself the Lady of Denial for the first 3 years. But I had learned from doing the Avon walk with the boob hat that images were important. And this gal needed her own image. Being an art major, I created the Angel of Hope. I had a pink wig because my hair was still growing back, long satin dress, and I had found pink feathered wings. And then I started collecting because I had been doing walks, even the Avon. Avon, Susan G. Komen, even with American Cancer Society, there was walks, and I would trade pins. So I wore those to bring awareness. Mm. But what I realized is when you dress in that character, there comes a major responsibility. I would tell individuals, you know, metastatic breast cancer doesn't have to be a death sentence. You don't think of type 1 diabetes as terminal. Terminology, you know, not terminology, yeah, that has changed too, but medicine has changed. You know, when I was diagnosed in 99, 50 years ago, the only thing they had was cobalt radiation. You know, there wasn't any chemotherapy, you know, and then it was only 1 or 2. We have come a long way. The drug that I was on for 16 years for metastatic breast cancer only came out the year before, you know. So I had to create an element of hope. An image is one of the best ways to present that. And it was also, believe it or not, I used to be very shy. I still am a little bit, but I could hide behind the facade. You know, it's like, I am Wonder Woman, and I can, and I could be shaking underneath it, but I was getting the message across. Mm-hmm. And just like a mom being brave when a child has to go through surgery or get their first shot or whatever, it's fine. I was put in that position. People ask, how are you doing? I became an element of hope. And with that is also, it's heartfelt. I have survivor guilt. There's no ifs, doubts about it. But I also have a true obligation to help give my experience, my wisdom and basically the support for someone going through it so it becomes easier. A good example, Mary, is that I remember someone got a reoccurrence and I got a phone call.
Me.
You were petrified. It's understandable. And I says, you'll be fine. And then I start asking you questions because I knew I had enough experience to know that you were still trying to figure out which course you wanted to go. I said, go ask your doctor, go ask your gynecologist. Have you thought about this? No, nothing. And then you come back, I get another phone call. So devil's advocate, you might say, but I've been there. I've been on both sides. And because I lived overseas and I saw how breast cancer was treated in other countries, we're very fortunate here. I don't care what the insurance, we're very fortunate. The thing is that you have to overcome that fear. It's like entering in a tunnel when you're first diagnosed and go, I don't know what to do, I can't see anything. And then you're kind of stumbling, okay? But there's light at the end of the tunnel. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. For me, I finally realized, yes, I could see the light of the tunnel, but it was glass block. I'm not going through that tunnel. And that's okay. It took me a while, but that's okay. I could still bask in the light of hope. Mm-hmm. And that, is when you choose to do something, I found that if you have a passion, no matter what that passion is, it could be gardening, helping, volunteering, or whatever, it pushes you through the turmoil that you're going to have. That passion is going to help you overcome what obstacles you face. And in doing that, those stepping stones are what helps you get stronger. And you gain wisdom from that. You gain inspiration. I told myself I would never take off this ring. And it says hope. And I have pink ribbons around it. I've been wearing that ring. In fact, my husband finally says, I had a ring and I was wearing it on my left finger. He says, I really would like you to be married. And I says, I am married. I'm married to hope. So we had, I added the extra pink ribbons on the other hand. But I came from a freeway and I'm making my own path. Mm-hmm. There are very few that have lived as long as I have with metastatic breast cancer. Because I've been out there, I've been asking. And so I don't know the way, but I do know that I have a candle and I can light the pathway and then other people can follow. So hopefully they have less complications, less survivorship issues, and they live longer than I do. That's my goal.
Thank you. You experienced firsthand the financial hardship that people face when their insurance plan changes or when they lose their insurance. In fact, you founded Circle of Hope to help ease the financial burden for breast cancer patients. And you're quoted as saying, if I thought fighting for my life was hard, fighting for my medical insurance was worse. Explain what hardships you faced.
First time dealing with cancer, to get my husband home he changes jobs. That also means that you have to change insurance. We were top of line, point of service, I have PPO, and all of a sudden I'm point of service, HMO. Okay, there is a clause if you're in treatment and they'll allow you to finish it under the old insurance. Well, I had 2 weeks from when I finished chemotherapy to start radiation. Only problem is my white blood count was so low because I had 2 chemotherapies. They hit me with everything. I was actually in a clinical trial which is now Neulasta. That brings up your white blood count in 5 to 7 days. Neutrogen, the only thing they had out there, brought it up in 14 days. Okay, I can do this. Contact my insurance company. Yeah, you can have Neutrogen for half the cost. It was $1,600 for 10 shots. I had to have 20. I had to have 2 rounds. $1,600? If I waited and not have anything, I would have lost my whole medical team. Talk about fear. I'd rather go through the treatment than to lose what you were hoping for. I got a hold of my oncologist, told him, I says, look, I'm going to lose you. Next thing I know, he says, I've got you the Neutrogen, but you're going to have to learn to inject it yourself because it was about ready to expire. So I learned to do that. The very first time I gave myself, I had a bruise like this. It looked like I had a tattoo around my thigh because each time, it didn't take me as long, but I pinched myself. Okay, we made it through that. And I was able, on the 14th day, I was able to get my radiation started. So I was able to finish. There was times I dealt with getting comments back, this test costs more money. And I called my insurance company. I said, oh, don't pay them. Meanwhile, I have bills going around because they keep billing me. And I finally had to call them after 6 months and got a hold of somebody and says, look, this is my case. You tell me this is the cost, but I'm still getting bills. I says, will you deal with him directly? So I learned how to deal with the insurance. I understood the financial problems. And that's why I started Circle of Hope, to help pay for the medical. But I would never, ever imagine that it would happen to me. In 2019, in October, my cancer came back again. I was classified as NED, no evidence of Ds. Let me clarify, when you're metastatic, you always have those seeds of cancer in you. So you don't know when it's going to pop up. I had been stable. Had to have radiation, no problem. Was placed on Ibrance, the new technology. Okay, immunology. That drug costs over $20,000 for 1 month. Okay, insurance. It was costing me $2,000 to $3,000. See, I am now Medicare, and I learned, again, I am constantly learning. When you have private insurance, it's easier to get manufactured drug assistance. When you are government or TriStar, military or government Medicare, they have separate programs or they don't have anything. I didn't qualify. There was no generic of it, so I had to pay. I guess the good karma that I passed along, I had a couple of nonprofits come to my rescue to pay that for a year. And I have done research to go on a different type of chemotherapy now that it's affordable. And again, I even learn. AZ&Me has a government program, Medicare program, that is helping me pay for my chemotherapy now for the Fossadec. And I found out in dealing with the nurse, because I, calling, again, We had a major snowstorm on the East Coast. Fosamax stays in your system for 40 days. The halftime is how long it stays. Okay, they couldn't get anything out. I'm now 60 days. Thank goodness I was stable. I had to start all over again. And then another time they screwed up and I got it 35 days. I was 5 days before I had to start over again. Next year, I have found by using the generic Medicare, because it has to be given, injections have to be given at the oncologist, it's now covered under my Part B, which is completely covered. My Part D is not. So again, 23 years later, I'm still learning about insurance. Yes, it's easier to be a patient.
Yeah.
It is easier.
Well, and that kind of ties into the next question I was going to ask you, that at every stage of your cancer, you have researched and educated yourself about medications, side effects, treatments, conditions. And you have said that educating others is your most important mission. Just touch again on why knowledge is so important to a good outcome, financially and emotionally and physically.
Okay. You're going to have a medical team. It's just not an oncologist, maybe radiologists, primary, other doctors involved. To be effective, one needs the knowledge and observation skills, educating oneself of what your side effects are on the medication, learning the medical terminology so you can, when you hear a word, you don't blank out, because that will happen. Understanding tests and labs, knowing you should have a lab. I didn't have my vitamin D. Mandatory for cancer patients to have a vitamin D test. Mine hadn't been over a year. I knew that, so I contacted my oncologist. Okay, forgot. Added it. Simple things. Some could be more, my tumor markers. Definitely metastatic. You want to keep an eye on that. You need to know what the range is. Mine started climbing. ICEA. Not one normally used for breast cancer. It's used for all hormonal cancers and colon cancer. I did research. My oncologist said, oh, it's okay. I go, One of the things I have is a survivorship issue is microscopic colitis. Well, microscopic colitis, irritable bowel disease, autoimmune, that can trigger the CEA. So I had to get a hold of my GI doctor. So between them, we were able to resolve that problem, issue it, and so I'm back to being normal. But if I didn't know, all it does is create fear, observation, side effects. When I was on Xeloda, which is foot-hand syndrome, where your hands will burn, turn bright red, your skin peels. That's for the liver metastasis. Dosage, when there was times I couldn't walk or my hands burn, they knew to cut the dose. But over time, I marked all of the side effects, minor ones. Did I have mouth sores? Did I have diarrhea? Did I have, is the hands getting redder or the feet? I kept track of that. That now gives me bargaining power with my doctor, because what those observations are is telling the doctor that, okay, I'm getting a buildup of toxicity on this particular chemo. Mm-hmm. And so it gives me credibility. Mm-hmm. I'm not, oh heck, breaking out because this is that. Mm-hmm. I have proof. Mm-hmm. And this is where you now have control of dealing with your treatment. When you take observations and you write down, it's like the very first time you have chemo is the hardest for anyone because they don't know what to expect. Mm-hmm. The second and third round becomes easier, especially if you note it. Okay, my energy level is going to drop. I'm going to have fatigue. I'm going to have muscle sores. You can plan around it. Mm-hmm. When you can do that, you now have the capability and the emotional stability to deal with this. You eliminate some of the physical complications. You gain credibility with your doctor and your medical team in dealing with this. And most of all, gives you a sense of control. Because being metastatic, I will never be able to control the cancer.
Right.
So all I can do is deal with the treatment. So it allows me to do that.
Well, and our just finally, as a metastatic breast cancer survivor, an important study of field of study in recent decades is survivorship issues, because people are living longer as cancer patients. What kind of headway has been made, or why is this such an important field of study these days?
I was a patient advocate for UCLA and Henry Mayo Hospital, and I went to the national conference for 5 years. I am the only lay person. I, at that time, was 10, 15 years out metastatic because I did it for 5 years. And the doctor says, well, it's only good for 1 year. And I would stand up. I says, we're living longer. Pay attention. Survivorship issues. Treatment for survival, there is a cost. Okay? I've lost 65% of my hearing. I wear hearing aids. I have what they call mechanical pulmonary problems. The scar tissue from a double mastectomy, from radiation all through here, has tightened the muscles around my ribs. Then all of a sudden I got high carbon dioxide. They couldn't figure it out. It's unheard of. Mechanical? I had one lung doctor tell me, you're just weird, Colleen, kiddingly. But yeah, I'm not normal. And then the longer I survive, there are other things coming up that we're finding out. So I now see a pulmonary doctor because I kind of know what the signs are. When I'm going up and down stairs and I'm huffing and puffing, okay, those muscles are tightening. I need to have them stretched. I have the, medicine changes, so does protocols. The very first protocol, I was Amycin. They don't give it to you nowadays for first-time cancer patients, breast cancer patients, because it can enlarge the heart. It can cause irregular heartbeat. I'm now seeing a cardiologist. Osteopenia, osteoporosis, because I'm on hormone treatment. I have a chance of severe bone loss. That is something I have to test. Another doctor, another test. I think the hardest thing I ever had to deal with wasn't the breast cancer, was being told I have microscopic colitis, which is an autoimmune disease, which is definitely from long-term use of chemotherapy. And there was no recording, nothing. They said, yes, it's caught. I says, I've had 2 prolapse, rectal prolapse surgeries because of diarrhea, second-degree diarrhea. For 16 years, that's what I had. Overall, I've had a total of 20 surgeries. I'm feeling like the bionic woman pretty soon. That and aging. It's like, okay, let's put things up. When we normally have medicine, we have clinical trials, and they know in the clinical trial, they test what is existing and what is better. Is it better because it brings up a better treatment plan, less side effects? Those are all important issues. Mm-hmm. Survivorships is something that, years ago, for example, chemo brain. Okay, they thought you were psychological, you're just not dealing with, Well, they've actually proved it. It took several years, but they found out there was actual physical chemical change and that they could do something about it and help out the emotional aspect as well as the physical aspect. For breast cancer, the biggest fear is lymphedema. They used to take out 20 lymph nodes. When in 99, one of the newest technologies was a dude centennial node testing where they just test one and see how many lymph nodes. I only had 4 lymph nodes. I only had 1 positive. I don't have to worry about lymphedema. Not there. Did get lymphedema in my legs because of the cancer was in my liver and in my spine down there. That was a little hard to prove. Again, another insurance issue. You can't get lymphedema down there. I'm going, want to make a bet? It is, as I said, you get to have to joke about it. But I really hope that, just like genetics, that used to be the buzzword 5 to 8 years ago. All of a sudden, they're realizing different types of breast cancer, and there may be some genetics. Survivorship issues, because they vary from person to person, treatments are changing. They're not paying attention. They have the biggest studies they've done is children's cancer patients. 20 years later, they're finding out that there are complications. Well, metastatic patients, breast cancer patients, they only, a couple years. Yeah, well, hi guys, 20 years. Okay, I'm challenging you. I'm talking to the doctors. What can you do? If I can do it, anyone else can. This is going back. Observation skills are going to be really helpful. That gives you credibility. Mm-hmm. We need to have that because if they look at, for new medicines, they also have to realize that the medications that we have changed, especially for longer living patients, those protocols, those medications are no longer given. So there was complications. That's why you changed it. So how can you help me? How can I deal with that? I want survivors to thrive, not only during treatment, but after treatment.
And that is a beautiful closing thought for us. And I want to thank you. It's been eye-opening. You are a wealth of knowledge. You are a powerhouse of passion. And you are a great advocate for cancer patients in our community. And I really want to thank you for coming today and sharing your story with us.
Thank you. It's always an honor.